What is up, everybody? This is Anthony with VR 365. What is going on? Today is Wednesday. It is 7 p.m. and it is April 10th. And yeah, so tonight is our nighttime episode. Now, so the plan for today's episode is that we were going to have special guest AerowynX, also known as Justin, longtime HTC Vive player, a guy that has been in the HTC Vive community since the very, very beginning. I haven't heard from Justin. I don't know what's going on. I talked to him yesterday, and I tried to hit him up on Skype. Let me see. I'm just going to tell him to let me know when you're around. I'll just say I've started the show. Go ahead and call in whenever you're ready. But I haven't heard from Justin, so I'm not sure what's going on. That would suck if we're not able to get him. Maybe something popped up at the last minute. Not exactly sure. But, if that's the case, we'll just have to zig and zag and do whatever we have to do. There are news topics to talk about. I wasn't really prepared. I thought, I would be doing this interview with AerowynX and talking to him kind of like about the history of the HTC Vive, the last 3 years, what has happened in PC VR gaming over the last 3 years. I also wanted to talk to him about all the big headsets that are coming up, the HP Reverb, the Valve Index, Oculus Rift S. I wanted to talk to him actually about PlayStation VR a little bit and also about Oculus, because I don't think he's ever been too down with Oculus, and I think he tried the PlayStation VR very briefly, but kind of got rid of the PlayStation VR and hasn't used that very much. But I still wanted to talk to him about it. And then, of course, like Skyrim. He's definitely very much involved in the Skyrim scene, like the modding of Skyrim, and also Sariento VR. Played a lot of that. Also wanted to talk to him about like deep diving into games instead of just scratching the surface of games, because it's a completely different way to possibly play games. So I don't know. I've sent a couple messages to him, not seeing anything here. So I guess I'm just going to have to operate as though he's not coming on. And then if he calls me, that'll be great. Let me make sure that let me check my volume here. Yeah, we got my volume right. Just want to make sure that I'll be able to hear a Skype call if it does come in. Okay, well, basically, I guess I'll just have to pretend like we're not going to go ahead and have AerowynX today. So we'll just have to adapt to that. Okay, so let's see. What do we want to get into as our number one story of the day? Let's see. I do have some stuff together that I did want to get into, even if he was going to be here. Some stuff I wanted to comment on quickly before we started. And the first thing I want to get into is we might as well cover our sponsor of the day. And our sponsor of the day is Patreon supporter Andy L. Mai. Andy, thank you so much for your support for VR 365 VR game rankings. It is absolutely appreciated. I really appreciate all of the Patreon supporters. I appreciate PayPal donators. I appreciate people that don't donate anything. And nobody needs to donate anything. Like, it's absolutely, completely 100% optional. You do not need to donate anything at all to this show. You can just listen to it and enjoy it. That's perfectly fine. You can listen to it and not enjoy it. You can watch it. Whatever you want to do with it, go ahead. It's out there for whatever purpose. If you do want to donate, awesome. If not, no big deal. But Andy L. Mai, he did donate. And I definitely appreciate that, because you know what? If I do have coverage of the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift S and HP Reverb and Valve Index, if I'm able to cover all four of these new headsets that are expected to be coming in maybe the next 90 days, I mean, can you believe that? 4 new headsets in the next 90 days? Holy smokes, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But if I'm going to cover all of that stuff, if I'm going to have detailed thoughts on all of that stuff, I need supporters like Andy L. Mai. So I'm assuming it's Mai, Andy L. Mai. Absolutely appreciate that. So much love to Andy. Definitely appreciate that. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw on a different trailer as we move on down the road, and I'll just throw some rando thing on here. And okay, so the next thing I wanted to get into, our number one news story of the day, is I'm going to switch over to our Webby browser. And does anybody recognize this game right here? Okay, so this game is called Out of This World, or if you're in other parts of the planet, basically, I was going to say other parts of the USA. No, other parts of our planet, you know this game as Another World. Okay, Out of This World or Another World. Just depends on what part of the planet that you occupy. Here in the USA, it was known as Out of This World. I think in the UK, it was called Another World. And I remember this game. I have absolute primetime memories of Out of This World. In fact, I believe I played this on Super Nintendo. I think I rented it from a Blockbuster. I think I played the Genesis version, probably a rental from Blockbuster as well. And then I bought this game. on the Panasonic 3DO. Yeah, way back in 1994, I had something called the Panasonic 3DO. One of the most craziest video game systems you could possibly imagine. Incredibly expensive. Luckily, I didn't get it when it was super expensive. I got an open box model after the price had dropped a couple of times. And that's how I was able to get a Panasonic 3DO. Still crazy expensive even after that. But Out of This World on the Panasonic 3DO, I love that game, man. The backgrounds were just incredibly drop dead gorgeous. It had incredible music. And the interactivity, not a ton of interactivity. You know, you're kind of just going left and right. And it was almost like a slightly interactive cutscene, but not very interactive. You would kind of move your controller and you'd have to make you would have to hit your joystick like right at the perfect time to jump at the perfect time or do whatever you needed to do. Otherwise, you'd probably fall to your death. That was kind of how it works. But basically, the guy that made this game has a brand new game. He has a brand new studio. It is called Pixel Reef. And he has a brand new game that is coming to PlayStation VR. And the trailer has debuted today. Let's go ahead and check that out. So we're going to bounce back over here to our standard scene. I'm going to go ahead and pump the volume up on this Vive AR demo, which we still haven't seen any AR in the Vive to the best of my knowledge. Still haven't seen that. But yeah, that's this demo here. I'm going to pump the volume on this. And let's check out this brand new trailer for Paper Beast for PlayStation VR.
A monster like you.
Grab it.
It's about damn time you're done healing. Don't look at me like that. This isn't your first time.
Let's see.
Look, I don't have time to explain. Just get in here. We need you.
Paper
Yes,
Beast.
just walk into the portal. Move it, move it, move it.
All right, well, there it is. That is Paper Beast. And of course, this is developed by Pixel Reef, which is the new development studio for the original developer. Eric Chahi is the guy, I might probably mispronouncing that. Eric Chahi is the guy that originally developed Another World way back in the early 90s, probably developed it in the very late 80s. It released in the very early 90s, like 1990, 1991 or so, Out of This World and Another World on so many different platforms, basically touched everything. They even had a Sega CD version of it. And so many years later, here we are in the year 2019, and now we have this game called Paper Beast that is coming to PlayStation VR. I like the look of it. It's interesting. The idea behind this is that big data, baby. Big data is taking over, and there's so much data that's out there, just terabytes and terabytes of data, and artificial intelligences analyzing all this data. And so the idea is that this is like some artificial world that basically kind of erupted out of all of this, out of the AI, out of all this big data that's going on everywhere. And then you have these creatures that just develop. And it's an interesting premise. Basically the idea here is you're going to another world. You're going out of this world, man. No, but seriously, you're going to kind of like an alien-like world in this like metaverse or whatever, in some kind of future AI construct that is happening here somewhere inside big data. That's what it's saying. Wildlife has blossomed. And so you have these creatures, you have these weird plant things that are developing. And now one of the things I don't know is, what are we actually doing in this game? How much of this is just pure cinematics? Is any of this gameplay footage? Now, at one point, I do see a move controller, and it appears that you're using your move controller and you're aiming it at some of these animals. You'll see it for a very brief second. Probably right around here is when we get this little clip. Let's see here. I'm waiting for it. Live an epic adventure. Okay, let's see. Maybe right after this part here, you'll see a move controller for like a split second. There it is, right there. And it looks like just for a couple of seconds there, you saw what appeared to be a move controller, and it looks like you're grabbing something from a long distance and you're like yanking it or doing something with it. So I have no idea what the gameplay is going to be like in this game. I don't know if it's third person or first person. Not a lot of details right now. We don't have a ton of details. Everybody is covering this, but I don't know that any of us have a tremendous number of details on this game. It is coming in 2019, probably later in the year, I'd have to imagine. But it's definitely one of the more interesting PlayStation VR games on the horizon. Looks pretty good. Another good game to keep our eyes on. Okay, so we do have that. Now, let's see. What else did I want to get to? Well, another thing that we can talk about, let's go ahead and hit some of the major websites right now, because I didn't get stories together because I just thought it was going to be a straight up interview. You know what? Wait, before we do that, one thing I did want to mention real quick is tomorrow. Tomorrow, JetX is going to be available. As far as I know, this is going to be available on April 11th. JetX. We saw the trailer at the very beginning of our show today. It was kind of during the intro of our show. Looks very colorful, looks exciting. You know what? Damn it, I need to send an email out to these guys, see if I can possibly get a code. I actually talked to the publisher, Fibram Limited. I talked to the guy. I was standing in a line with him to wait and try the Oculus Quest and to try the Oculus Rift S, a guy that works for Fibram Limited. I think they're in like Sweden or something. And I got to get a code for this game, got to try it out. It comes out tomorrow. I kind of forgot about it. This happens all the time, where a game will sneak up on you. But yeah, April 11th. Don't know what price this is going to go for. If I had to hazard a guess, I would say $19.99, $24.99, $29.99, probably somewhere in that kind of range. It does look incredibly colorful. It looks really beautiful. but we're not too sure here. I know it's kind of been described almost kind of like Wipeout and stuff like that is kind of the description that I've heard for this game, kind of similar to like a Wipeout. But yeah, this game will be arriving tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Did want to remind you guys about that one. Okay, and then we might as well cover another little thing that we probably need to do every day, and that of course is the daily deals, Oculus's daily deals, and let's go ahead and see what is going on over here at Oculus. And today's daily deal, Along Together. It's $8, 46% off its normal price. Normal price is $15. It's down to $8 for today. Well, actually, there's only 4 hours and 43 minutes left. Yeah, this is a much later episode today. We're starting at 7 p.m., a lot later in the evening, so not a lot of hours left in the daily deal. This will last for a little while and then it will disappear. I've heard good things about Along Together. This is one of those games that had just kind of slipped by me. There's probably, I should make like a master list of like 40 VR games that I'm interested in. I'd like to play them, but I just never did. Never got my hands on them for a myriad of reasons. Maybe there were too many other games coming out at the same time, or who knows. But there's a lot of games that I've missed. I have blind spots. Along Together is one of these. I have heard some pretty good things about it. But let's go ahead and bounce over to Upload VR. And we'll check out some of the latest stories today. Let me go ahead and pop my chat out. Where's my chat? Let's see here. Let me pop my chat out, and then that way I can see what you guys are saying here. Okay, here we go. It's taking a while for it to pop out. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so Kev Gretz says, Along Together is a solid game. I liked it a lot. And John Bardo says it's the daily deal on the go as well. Yeah, Along Together is also available on the go. Let's see what some of the other folks are saying. Let's see. My only complaint about PSVR is everything. That is Chris that's talking about PSVR there. Dave Station VR says Ghost Giant and Jupiter and Mars PSVR exclusives this month as well. And good news about Ghost Giant, VR Roundtable. We do have, I believe we have a preview code for Ghost Giant. Now it's embargoed probably until actual release day. So I'm not going to be able to talk about that probably until April 16th. But the beautiful thing about it is getting it this early gives me a chance to play some of Ghost Giant every day now leading up until its release. And so I should have a pretty good feel for Ghost Giant when it arrives. Probably next Tuesday, I'm guessing, is April 16th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I'm guessing that's when Ghost Giant is going to be arriving for PlayStation VR. And then, of course, Jupiter and Mars, that's April 22nd. Looking forward to that one as well. I think that one is going to have a very interesting look and vibe to it. Okay, I was just seeing what some other folks are talking about in chat. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the lead stories that are going on these different websites. Yeah, so we talked about this, that The Spy Who Shrunk Me now has VR support. I'm not sure if anybody's heard any kind of reviews for this. I don't know that anybody has dived into this and tried it out. I know it is $15. This was a game that had a really cool looking trailer. In fact, let me see if I can find that trailer real quick, because the trailer looked awesome. And this was one of the games that we were really hyped for, and then we found out that the VR was coming later. And when we found out that the VR was coming later, it kind of killed the hype a little bit. But the developer is Catland. Here's the trailer. This was the trailer that we saw.
Audrey Smooth Spy.
And let's see here.
I'm on a mission to Moscow. The plan is to infiltrate a software company.
Kind of looks like budget cuts a
Figure
little
out
bit, this
what
part.
they're hiding inside.
And you get this Honey, I Shrunk the Kids
Little
kind of
did I
thing going
know,
on too.
My problems were about to become larger than expected.
So I don't know. I don't know. It looks like a pretty fun game. Looks like a pretty cool game. I like the art style. Kind of Incredibles. Kind of reminds me of Incredibles. Reminds me of Budget Cuts a little bit. And back when we first heard about this and everybody saw this trailer, this was one of the more anticipated VR games. But then what happened is when it released, the VR mode was not available right then. And so it went ahead and released anyway. I think mid-December 2018, this game came out. No VR. It was available for $10. I don't know that a ton of people jumped on it, didn't hear much about it. And now finally, we've been waiting for the VR mode for a long time. It now has the VR mode, but they may have made a bit of a mistake there. Might have been better if they just sat on the game all the way until now, when the game was finally ready for VR, and just came out with both versions now, and then I think the hype would have been better. But they're hoping for the second wind of hype. The problem is, in media outlets all around the internet, we've all covered this game a long time ago, and we've kind of moved on from it. We've kind of forgot about it. And so, yeah, it's got this second wave of enthusiasm, but is it going to get enough attention? Well, at least it does have a story on Upload VR, so people are checking it out. Looking down here, The Spy Who Shrunk Me Now sounds like a bad prawn. Yeah, I don't know, but no reviews yet, so we still don't know what the deal is in terms of how good that might be. Okay, this is big news. This is actually probably the biggest news of the day, maybe, other than Paper Beasts being announced for PlayStation VR, a brand new exclusive VR game that looks pretty good. But the other big news of the day, The Exorcist Legion VR is headed to the Oculus Quest. A day doesn't go by that we find out about more Oculus Quest games. They continue to pour it on. More and more Oculus Quest games are coming all the time. And here we get another horror game. And this is good news because as far as we know, the only confirmed horror game that I'm aware of right now on the Oculus Quest is Face Your Fears 2. So now we've added another primetime horror game in the Exorcist Legion VR. It is confirmed. The port is going to include all 5 episodes of the original game. Not sure if you'll be able to pick any of the episodes up individually, although it kind of makes sense for them to do that on a mobile platform like the Oculus Quest. Bite-sized experiences are actually maybe even more logical on a platform like that. Shorter burst experiences are maybe even more logical on a platform like Oculus Quest. So that's interesting. But you know what the most interesting aspect of this entire thing is? The most interesting aspect is that the Oculus Quest version of the game is going to support the ability to scale the environment to your available physical space that you have. And this is quite honestly, ladies and gentlemen, maybe the killer feature for the Oculus Quest. And there's a lot of you guys out there, there's a lot of PC VR players that are like, Oculus Quest, I don't give a damn about the Oculus Quest. I have my man cave. I go into my man cave. I've got my freaking Valve Index, brah, and everything is beautiful. I've got a high-end VR experience. I've got a 2080 Ti. What the hell do I need an Oculus Quest for? It's going to collect dust. It's not going to do anything. You know, I've got an HP Reverb. I've got Windows Mixed Reality. I've got a Samsung. I've got an Oculus Rift S, etc., etc. I've got the highest end experiences in my man cave. Why would I want an Oculus Quest? What could possibly tempt me over to the idea of an Oculus Quest? And I'll tell you, one of the best things that could possibly tempt you over is the fact that every single developer that makes a game on the Oculus Quest, they know that every person that owns an Oculus Quest has the ability to potentially find a wide open space somewhere where they could have a breakthrough room scale like experience. And that's the super interesting thing. Don't you guys remember that video that we saw not too long ago? That video, it was what was that game? Dead Secret Circle or something like that. And it was the developers and they had an Oculus Quest and they showed a guy walking through like multiple rooms of his house practically. and playing Dead Circle Quest, that's the kind of game-changing stuff that we might be able to look forward to with the Oculus Quest. I've got a really big area over here. I can actually, like if I were to try to get every little inch of real estate, move everything away from the walls, and I got a lot of junk that's over there that you definitely don't want to see. A number of people have said, Anthony, why don't you make a video where you show off your whole play space and all of that? I'm like, hell no, I'd have to reveal all the freaking mess I got over here. I'm conveniently hiding anything that doesn't look good over there because nobody sees it, and then I keep this area nice and clear. But if I cleared everything out of here, I could possibly have basically like 17 feet by 17 feet, damn near 20 feet by 20 feet square space, a really huge space, and I could have an incredible room scale experience with my Oculus Quest because they know you have no cords. Room scale, let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, this was one of the topics I was going to talk to AerowynX about tonight. I was going to talk to him. Let me see. Have I heard back from him? No, still haven't heard back from AerowynX. So yeah, damn it, I don't know what's going on with AerowynX. I'm going to try to sign into Steam really quick because normally that's how I would talk to him on Steam. And let me see if I can find him on Steam. But I think he was offline. Oh, wait. Yeah, it says away. I'm going to just do bruh. Bruh, where are you, bruh? Yeah, today is Wednesday, April 10th. Yeah, this was supposed to be the day. So anyway, I don't know. Oh, well, we'll just have to move on. But anyway, what was I going to say now? I was talking about, oh yeah. So one of the things I was going to talk to Justin about, AerowynX, is I was going to talk to him about the early days of the HTC Vive when the room scale dream was still a valid dream. In the early days of the HTC Vive, we were thinking that room scale was going to be a really huge part of VR. And we thought that developers were going to make custom tailored experiences that would really take advantage of really big spaces where you could walk around and you could do something over here. And then you walk way over here and you do something over there. And then you walk. So you'd be walking around, you'd be moving around in this huge area. And that was kind of a real game-changing thing for VR, in my opinion. It was one of the reasons, honestly, it was the key reason why I bought an HTC Vive in the first place. You guys don't actually see my HTC Vive because the camera is not aimed over there. But it's one of the reasons I bought my HTC Vive in the first place is the idea of room scale. And I played a game like Unseen Diplomacy, and I was like, oh my God, this is the future. And I remember the very first Job Simulator was really good with room scale. Like it would take advantage if you had a really big space. When you're doing the short order cook area and you're in the kitchen, it's a much bigger kitchen. The refrigerator, you actually walk over to the refrigerator. You walk over to the microwave. It took advantage of that. And you're walking around and you're doing things. And there's something about walking around physically within an area very naturally that adds that extra level of immersion. The problem is, very early in the days of VR, developers found out that the vast majority of people don't have that kind of space. And the vast majority of people are in a room much more similar to like Gary Reckoner VR, you know, in his little area where he plays VR. It's a small confined area. He can't do any kind of dramatic room scale type stuff. And because so many players were in that same situation that Gary is in, you end up in this situation where you're simply not going to get very many room scale games because you're catering to such a tiny fragment of the population. But with the Oculus Quest, with the fact that anybody can find a larger open area, somebody's house where they have a big living room, or maybe in your school gymnasium, you can find a large open area somewhere. Maybe even outdoors if it's nighttime, but you have like in a parking lot with really bright lights, so there's enough light where it can see the ground and the tracking could work. You can find a large area and you could have a game-changing kind of VR gaming experience that maybe only the Oculus Quest is going to provide, because it's the only platform where they can count on the fact that you could probably find a bigger room. So, I mean, that's exciting to me. Like what I've seen, and you got to imagine there's going to be some developers, there's going to be a handful of developers that really lean into this idea. And they're going to be, I could imagine some developers are going to be like, look, if you can find a 40-foot by 40-foot area, you can have an incredible experience in this game. We're going to tailor make it. We're going to have a special 40-foot by 40-foot mode. Now, they know the vast majority of people will not be able to do that, but the small handful of people that do could have a game-changing experience. We remember Dead and Buried, the multiplayer session that they did at Oculus Connect 5. That's the kind of stuff that really jazzes me. So I think even though the graphics are kind of lame on the Oculus Quest, I mean, they're likely to be pretty lame to hardcore PC VR players, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater on that. So that's really exciting news. Not so much the Exorcist Legion VR. The more exciting news is that there's multiple developers that are actually going to lean into this bigger play space idea. We saw that with Dead Secret Circle. They're obviously leaning into it as well. Wolf and Wood Interactive are leaning into it. And probably many other developers are leaning into that as well that we just don't know about yet. Okay, another story that I saw today is Apex Construct. Okay, this is a really long article, and I can't really get into this too much. I'd have to have grabbed very specific quotes from this article. But you can see as I'm scrolling through this article, this is pretty long. There's a lot of paragraphs. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And I think it's a good read. I think it's a pretty good read because Fast Travel Games, the developers of Apex Construct, let me see, I could probably find an Apex Construct trailer. Oh, I'm not even on my Webby browser here. I do this a lot where I'm accidentally in the wrong area and I'm like, yeah, look at this website, look at all this, and we're not even on there. Okay, so this is the article I'm talking about. This is over at Road to VR, and Apex Construct is going in depth on Quest development. This is this really long article with a lot of paragraphs, a lot of pictures and stuff, and they're talking to Fast Travel Games, and they're talking to them about all the different issues that you got to deal with, the inevitable trade-offs when you're porting a pretty high-end PC VR game and you're trying to water it down as minimally, you're trying to water it down, but not, you're trying to avoid watering it down, basically. You know you're going to have to water it down to some degree, but you're trying to avoid doing it too much, and you're trying to get the core gameplay onto the Oculus Quest without sacrificing the original vision. And that's kind of what they talk about here. The thing is, every question that they're asked, they kind of dance around it. And I've noticed this with a number of developers. Like there's a lot of developers that are asked about how they're going to navigate going from a high-end PC VR game to the Quest. And unfortunately, you don't really get the real information. I would love to be a fly on the wall in their boardroom when they're really talking about what they have to, because I'm sure they probably say, man, on the Quest, we can't do this, we can't do that, we just have to throw it out. But then when you're in an interview with them, nobody wants to piss off Oculus and say the Quest can't do this, the Quest can't do that. So instead, they talk about how they have to scale things back. They have to figure out what are the right areas where they can cheat. And one of the things Fast Travel Games did talk about is they get away with a lot of extra stuff on PC VR and even PlayStation VR, where even if you're not looking in certain directions, they're rendering the geometry behind you. But now when they bring that type of a game to the Oculus Quest, they're not going to render that geometry behind you because they need every little ounce of juice they can possibly get out of that Snapdragon 835. So they're not going to render stuff that you don't happen to be looking at. Instead of having 7 enemies on the screen, you're going to have 5 or 4 enemies on the screen. So there's definitely going to be trade-offs. And that's what this article gets into. And that they kind of dance around most of these questions, but you can still get a bit of insight into this. So it is kind of interesting. Now, I'm not sure if these screenshots right here, like, is this an Oculus Quest screenshot? I think these might actually be Oculus Quest screenshots. And let's see, I'm clicking on this one here. Looks pretty good. You know, one of the things that we keep seeing, how many people have seen this with a lot of Oculus Quest screenshots? They really concentrate on making your hands look good, right? You know, because what is one of the keys of the Oculus Quest? The 6 degrees of freedom, the legit hand presence. This is, you know, we haven't had this. The Oculus Go doesn't have legit hand presence. It has one little remote that is a 3DOF remote that doesn't track very well. And so you can't really have hand presence, and it's a big thing to have hand presence on a standalone. And so it's probably going to be pretty important. And Oculus is probably telling a lot of these developers, spend some of those polygons on your hands because you're going to be looking at them a lot. They're going to be in your view a lot. And if you can make your hands look really good, it kind of makes the whole thing look really good, even if, you know, the other stuff is kind of watered down a little bit, but make those hands look good. That's something I've noticed with quite a few Oculus Quest screenshots that we've been seeing. Let's see, this is probably an Oculus Quest screenshot as well. And yeah, so looking at this screenshot right here, one of the things that we can see is there's only one little guy right there, you know, where in the real game, there might have been another guy there, another guy down there. And I think that's probably going to be one of the most frustrating things for me when playing these Oculus Quest games, is it's going to be hard for me to forget about the fact that instead of battling 8 robots, I'm battling 4 or 5 robots, because I'm going to notice that. I'm the type of person that will notice that, and hopefully the experiences will be good enough where I start to forget about that and I just have fun, and I forget about the fact that, okay, yeah, these textures are watered down. There's not as many enemies. There's not as many particle effects. There's not the smoke effects and things like that that you might have saw on a PC VR game. But I think it'll work out okay for the most part. So that is that's that article there about Apex Construct. Pretty good article. Probably want to check that out. Okay, let me go ahead and bounce back over to chat. See what some folks are talking about here in chat. I've been yapping for a long time. Elin Kim says, even Anthony is buying games at Steam instead of Oculus Store. Yeah, but you know what? In the back of my mind, though, I am starting to second guess a lot of that. I really am. So I don't know. That could change, especially when I have an Oculus Rift. An Oculus Rift. Oh, here's Justin calling in. Okay. Hello. Hey, what's up? What's going on? All right. So hold on one second here. I'm going to get you live. I got your audio in now. Okay, you can go ahead and talk. Let me switch over to my other scene here. 1 second. Let's see. Is this? Yeah, this one here. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and talk. And then, well, actually, let me ask you a question. And I want chat, like as you answer this question, I want chat to let me know if I need to turn your volume up or down a little bit. But okay, let's see. What did I want to ask you first? Okay, I got to think about this for a second. Well, basically, why don't we start off with Skyrim VR? So I understand that you play quite a bit of Skyrim.
Yeah, let's see. I actually haven't checked Steam in a while, but probably at like 600 hours, something like that. Elder Scrolls. Yeah, 576. I'm getting there.
Yeah. So how long, like when did the Skyrim addiction start for you?
I mean, I've played Skyrim, the original one, for quite a bit, and then I played Special Edition when it came out, but I never really got into the whole modding scene. And once VR came out, I was like, man, so much more interesting to mod the game and actually see your mod or other people's mods actually in VR. So, and I mean, you go to Nexus, there's tens of thousands of mods. Like it just never ends. There's 100 new mods every week. So it's it's a never-ending source of enjoyment, I guess.
Absolutely. And how many do you have running like simultaneously?
So let's see. My list right now, I just redid it. I'm at 584.
Damn.
Um,
So when you keep adding all these extra mods on top of other mods and on top of other mods, does your performance ever tank at all, or is it not?
yeah, you gotta be careful. There's some mods. It's a funny thing. So you can put in one mod that'll drop your performance, like some grass mods will drop you by 30 to 40 frames, just that mod. And then I could add 200 other texture mods that literally do nothing to your frame rate because they're the same performance as the vanilla game. They just look better. So that's one of the things with modding. You just got to kind of test things and know what to look for because definitely some will like even on a 1080 Ti, I couldn't handle that. So
Yeah. So okay, one question I do want to ask you is I know you had a PlayStation VR, I think, for a brief period of time, right? Back in the
less than a
day.
week.
Oh, damn, less than a week. Okay. So you probably didn't play Skyrim on that, but when Skyrim did come to that, were you tempted by it, or did you go to someone else's house that maybe had it or anything?
Nah, I thought about it, but then they had announced that it was just a timed thing. So it was like I already had the Vive at the time, and I'm like, I'll just wait. I'm not even gonna bother because obviously PlayStation, well, Sony specifically won't allow mods on it, so it's not really worth it to me.
Yeah, yeah. But so you've been playing Skyrim for a long time, but like the fascination with like the mods and like when you play on a daily basis, when you play VR on a daily basis, are you mostly like, is it pretty much all Skyrim all the time? Is like for the last month, is there any other game you fired up, VR game that was not Skyrim?
Um, well, today I tried out Vacation Simulator. Well, I wouldn't say I tried it. I got it for my kids, and they played it for like 2 hours straight. So they're very into that. But Job Simulator was like their top game anyway, so it's no surprise there. Um, have I tried anything else lately? I tried Blade and Sorcery not too long ago,
Yeah.
just to see the update. Which I mean, it's fun. It's still a little early for me though. They need to add some more gameplay types or some more modes or something.
What do you think about like Blade and Sorcery is an interesting thing to think about real quick here because when you're walking around looking at some of the graphics in Blade and Sorcery, in some of the areas, it kind of almost reminds me of Skyrim a tiny bit. And then the physics is interesting because you take your swords and stuff and you hit a door or a table or whatever, and it has that pretty good interaction. But were you expecting even more from the physics when you first heard about the game? Because that's what pretty much everybody was ranting and raving about. Did you think it kind of delivered on that note, or what do you think?
Well, I remember the first day, I think they patched some of this, but the first day it came out, the swinging felt weird to me. Like you'd swing across a body and it just kind of, the sword would slide across. It wouldn't feel natural. And then the other issue is when you get surrounded by guys and your sword kind of gets stuck between it, it just kind of freaks out for a couple seconds. But I mean, overall, it's like playing Gorn, but a prettier version, I guess.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say about Blade and Sorcery though is like the trailers. Oh my god, like those
Oh,
trailers sell that game, right?
yeah, they definitely go all cinematic with it and make it look a lot more epic than it
Exactly.
normally is.
Yeah, because I was like, because you see, they always show these like slow motion moments, right, where you're just sticking a sword right into somebody's cheek, and then it goes out their other cheek, and it's all happening in slow motion. But like when I played the game, I didn't really experience much of that, but maybe I didn't time the slow motion, right at the precise moment, because you can activate that pretty easily.
Yeah, you can do some pretty cool stuff. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's just an arena game, basically. I mean, if they added more challenge modes, more unlocks, stuff like that, I'd probably play it more.
Okay. I have a question in chat. Let's see here for you. Let's see. I'm trying. Okay, where was I? I just had a question. Okay. Person says, wondering what AerowynX thinks about getting cyber shoes for games like Skyrim.
I know some people have tried like I don't know about the cyber shoe specifically, but I know people that have played it with like the treadmills and stuff. Um, I don't know. I guess I'd have to try it. I'm not a big fan of the treadmill specifically, just because pretty much all the ones on the market are limit your mobility a lot. I don't really see a point in having, a full room set up like I do for VR and then put myself in a little crate where I can basically just run back and forth and maybe crouch a little bit. It seems kind of pointless to me, but I mean, I guess one eventually we'll get better forms of ways to move around in VR. I mean, I don't think arm swinger is going to be the end all for movement in VR for people.
Here's a question. Like from playing Skyrim, one of the things that I hear from other people is like some people can play it for 3 hours in a row, 4 hours in VR, like with the headset on. How long do you go in your sessions of Skyrim?
We had a talk about this actually recently on the Skyrim VR subreddit, but for me, I'd say about 2 hours is an average. I mean, it's not even that I'm tired or want to get out. I just have other obligations or I got to get up for work in the morning, so I just don't have the luxury of playing for that long. I mean, it depends. Like, it's one of those games though, you're like, it takes an hour to do anything. So by the time you're trying to get somewhere and you get where you're going and you start a quest, I mean, 2 hours have already gone by. So to me, it's pretty easy to put a lot of time real quick in that game and you don't even notice.
Yeah, do you like when you're playing Skyrim, I mean, have you like gone through the entire like story mode and all that probably millions of times, and do you just now just like go off and do your own little thing or
So it's funny, I've played the main story in VR. I haven't done the DLCs yet in VR. I've played the DLCs previously when the game first came out or when the DLCs first came out, but I haven't actually gone through because I've been continuously building. I wouldn't say I make too many of my own mods. I usually modify other people's work because I'm not a 3D artist. I don't know how to program or any of that, but editing other people's work, changing coloring and stuff is all easy stuff I can do. And the thing is, a lot of mods don't look great out of the box in VR, just depending on certain things that don't work in VR. Like we don't have water reflections in VR. It's just a feature that was disabled. Um, a lot of because the VR is so bright compared to a lot of monitors, like the brightness of some things just are overwhelming in VR. So I've gone through a lot of them and redone them basically for VR. And then I write up these little guides and stuff that I put up on the subreddit.
what graphics card are you rocking right now?
I'm still on the 1080 Ti, which I'll probably stick with that at least one more generation. We'll see what their next 300 series or whatever they end up calling it ends up being, but I didn't really see a point in upgrading to the 200 series or 2000 series.
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot of money and not a lot of huge benefit right now from what most people are saying.
And unless you want the ray tracing and all that good stuff, which doesn't really have any benefit for VR right now, so it's kind of no purpose to me since I don't really play anything but VR these days.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, why don't let's go back in time real quick here because I remember like going back. We just passed the 3-year anniversary, right, of the HTC
Yep.
Vive, and I remember those days because way back then I ordered a Vive. I know this was like March 2016. I
Yep.
pre-ordered one. I didn't get one like right away on April 5th. I got my Vive like the third week in April. But I just remember back to the time, that time and everybody being on the subreddit and just the whole community feeling that we had there on the subreddit. It was a special time, man, and it just kind of disappeared, once everybody got their headsets and they all went on their separate ways. But it was like before we got our headsets, there was that camaraderie that was going on that was really cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember when the pre-orders were going up. I was at work, and I as soon as they went up, the site kept freezing and was getting all mad. I was able to get one in within like it was within the first 10 minutes that they went up, and yeah, prior to that, I just remember watching like Tribal Instincts and Bradley and all those guys that had the Vive pre's, and they were showing all their cool stuff and watching them and hyping everybody up, and yeah, it was good times. I think I got mine. It wasn't the first batch; it was the second batch that came out, so it was a couple weeks after that I had gotten mine. But yeah, the Reddit was fun. Then everyone was kind of just trying to figure out what it was going to be like, and everyone was sharing their issues or experiences and all that. And yeah, over time it just kind of deteriorated into Oculus versus Vive thing, and I just got a little sick of that and didn't want to be part of it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. What was I was going to ask you something, then I forgot about it. Oh, okay. So back to that time, like when we first got VR, and if you were anything like me, you probably like your mind probably starts racing, and you start thinking of all these incredible possibilities, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is such a game changer. This is the beginning. Like this is the future. Here it is. It's freaking holodeck and all of that. And it's this amazing thing that's happening. But here we are 3 years later. Not a lot has really happened in 3 years. Are you a little bit disappointed at like where we are as a VR gaming industry? Like I mean, we didn't have that tremendous success that a lot of people were kind of thinking we were going to have.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping the hardware would have moved a little quicker, but I mean, it's understandable. I mean, anyone that's been around tech for a long time, I mean, I've been into computers since the late 80s, and I've been into computer games since, forever. So you see technology move, and it's a slow moving thing, and especially for something like this where I mean, gaming's already an established thing. It's been around for so long. There's so many developers that have been making games for all these years. You have all these great games out these days. It's not like this is coming back in the 80s when there was hardly any games, and if something like this came then, it would probably grown a lot quicker. But it's competing with today's gaming market. It's it's not an easy thing to do, and then you just got to factor in everything. I mean, the launch price was $800. I mean, who can afford $800 plus at least a 970 PC plus everything we needed? Um, yeah, I mean, to me, it's not really that surprising how things are moving. I mean, it's most of the like if you read a lot of articles through the years that people that actually are in the industry and understand the industry, they projected it was going to be a pretty big hype, and then kind of the fall, and then just slow rise, which we're in the slow rise phase right now.
Yeah, but like here's a question. I mean, back then in 2016, like I knew that it was going to take a while for us to get big games. I mean, I knew it was
Yeah.
going to take years, and I knew it was going to be years and years before we really started to get the stuff that we really, really wanted to get. But then we didn't have to wait a tremendous amount of time. We got Fallout 4 VR, and it was a big thing. We got Skyrim that hit PlayStation VR, and then of course it came over as well. We got LA Noire VR. So we got a couple of pretty big mainstream kind of games that sprinkled in a couple of years in. And I just kind of thought like, man, maybe we could get to the point where we'd get a Grand Theft Auto VR, or we get a or a FIFA Soccer VR, or just some of these bigger mainstream games. And I feel like we're almost like the triple monitor guys. We're like racing guys. We're like a niche right now, and I'm kind of worried that if we remain a niche, if we don't start to expand a bit more, that a lot of the people that are current VR players might drift back to flat gaming because they just don't see the games coming that they really want to come. And then we're just going to be this small little core group of people, and we're just not going to be able to command a lot of primetime games. Do you have any fears like that?
Well, for VR games especially, I think hopefully as especially this year and next go by, we're gonna see more announcements for, either simultaneous release for a VR version plus a flat screen version, or the converts, like we're seeing Borderlands is about to come out. Obviously, No Man's Sky is the big one. I think if these start doing a lot better, I mean, if you look what Skyrim VR was, Steam's, VR game of the year for last year, top seller and all that. So I think if more of these games start coming out from these companies and they sell well, assuming they make good ports, I think that'll move the industry along a lot quicker, and it'll be a lot easier on these developers for money purposes, because obviously, who's going to spend 100 people? You got these studios that Skyrim was like 100-man crew for 5 years, $100 million or something crazy like that. I mean, that's not going to happen for VR specific game. I mean, we'll get a couple big ones like the Stormland looks cool. That'll be coming out, but I don't know how long that one's going to be. You'll probably finish it in like a weekend or two.
Yeah.
And that one.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of like Stormland, and I mean, you're talking about these big games, and you're talking about the investments that's required, and how many people work on them, and all this stuff. And a lot of people, because I don't know, I've kind of associated you more in the Vive camp, whether or not you're really in the Vive camp or not. But I kind of always thought of you kind of being a Vive guy, and we know that on the subreddits and stuff, a lot of people kind of do get into these tribal mentalities where it's like, the exclusives are killing, the exclusives are killing our market, it's ruining this. But on the one hand, you got to admit, Oculus, I mean, money talks, bullshit walks. Like right now, I'm looking at a Lone Echo trailer, right? Or it might be Lone Echo 2, I think. And they are throwing money out there. What do you think about like the exclusivity thing? Do you feel like it's bad for business, a necessary evil? I mean, it's almost like this what do you mean? It's like they're making a console, right, on the PC, and it's kind of an unusual thing. We're not used to that. What do you think about it?
I mean, yeah, it's the big fight since the beginning of Oculus and Facebook, and been going through that for 3 years now. And I mean, I've always been against it. I try to buy any game I can on Steam. I mean, don't really agree. Steam's kind of got a monopoly on PC too, but it's kind of I mean, you have some options for other stores, but I mean, as far as Oculus Store, like if I don't have to buy any, like if it's not exclusive to that store, I probably won't buy it on that store, just for the fact that I have an Oculus now, but I don't plan on staying with Oculus. And especially now that they've come out and specifically said, they're not going to be doing a Rift 2 anytime soon. I don't really see myself sticking with it. But I mean, it's obviously a big issue for most PC gamers, this whole idea of exclusivity. And I mean, it's happening all over the place. You see people are going crazy now over Epic Games Store, and they're starting to pay all these developers to put their games, exclusively on the Epic Store. And I mean, anybody can access the Epic Store. It's just the principle of having to download their store and have a crappier interface and not have, all your friends lists and your saved hours and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just say, but on the flip side, yeah, if not for it, we won't get some of these games. I can't say I've been impressed with a lot of the Oculus titles, but I mean, some of them are pretty great. I mean, Lone Echo is a great game. It's a back and forth thing. It's, everyone wants content, but nobody wants to pay for it, and someone's paying for it, and everyone's going to complain about it. So.
But it's interesting if you think about it, like what if Facebook never did buy Oculus? Maybe some other company would have, or maybe they would have been a scrappy little company trying to live, from the ground up, and they would just get investment, and they would have just been a much smaller company that would have grown. I mean, who knows what it could have been, but at the same time, Facebook has spent a huge, giant amount of money. Like they gave 10 million to Epic Games. That we got Robo Recall. They gave money to Ready at Dawn for all the Lone Echo, Echo Combat, Echo Arena, all that stuff. Money to Insomniac. Money to 4A Games for like Arctica 1. Money to Tripwire Interactive for Killing Floor Incursion, or In Exile Entertainment for The Mage's Tale, and what do you call it? Who made Red Matter? I'm forgetting their name. Oh, Vertical Robot. Money to Vertical Robot, and then so we get these like timed exclusives, and then they eventually come over, like The Mage's Tale, Killing Floor Incursion, and Red Matter and stuff like that. Windlands 2 was kind of a big one last September, right? But then they come over, but then there's these other exclusives. But like if they didn't throw all that money around, where would we have been? Like we would still just be playing like a bunch of little space pirate trainer games, and it's not bad. I mean, those are great games, but it's kind of nice that we do get a few of these like teasers of what the potential could be with higher end developers.
Yeah, especially made specifically for VR. I mean, playing Skyrim as much as I do and how much I like it, I can say it's kind of a lazy port. Like they did a lot for it, but like all the menus are still not made for VR. They didn't really do much with the interactions or the combat. They just kind of, added VR motion controls, but there's a lot more. They like just watching the No Man's Sky video, like they got like full flight control interactions. They redid the menu for VR. Like it looks like they put a lot of work just into the VR aspect of the game. And I think if we can get more devs doing that, like what No Man's Sky is doing, I mean, just that could push, the games to the point where I think people would say, oh, I think it's worth it for me now. There's enough content out there that I feel it's worth the investment. And I mean, the headsets are, half the price or less than they were when we got our original ones. I mean, look how 1060s are reasonably cheap now. Computers are getting cheaper, so I don't know. It's gonna move slow, but I think I'm not too worried about it. Just one day just be like 3D TVs. Like who the hell talks about 3D TVs anymore? I don't see it going that route.
I say 3D die. Yeah, I was telling these people that 3D's dead because I had a 3D TV. I was into that. Like I was like in the world during the World Cup, whatever year that was, like when 3D TVs first came out and they had like World Cup games in 3D TV and all that. Like I bought into that whole thing. I had a PlayStation 3 with freaking MotorStorm, Pacific Rift, and all that stuff. But no, let's talk about Oculus for a second. So you do have an Oculus Rift, huh?
I do.
Okay, how long have you had that?
For just over a year now. Actually, it's funny. The main reason I switched was because of Skyrim 2, and that's because the biggest advantage of a game not made for VR when you port it is the controls don't translate well to touchpads, and especially menus. Skyrim menus are a fucking nightmare when you're trying to deal with them and you have tons of items and you're trying to go through stuff, and it's just it's not fun. So I started looking around for an Oculus, and there was a guy local to me, and he had a full set he used twice, and he was giving away an extra pair of touch controllers because he had bought the third sensor. And so 2 sets of touch controllers, barely used. He wanted like $300 for it. I was like, yeah, I'll take that.
Wow. And, so you were sleeping with the enemy, huh? But you know what, about those controllers, because like you and me were there at the very beginning of the Vive when we first got our Vives, that big gigantic ass box that we got, and we opened it up, and the foam padding everywhere, right? And I remember when I first got my Vive controller and I looked at it and I held it in my hand and I was like, oh my God, this is so next level, and it felt so advanced and it seemed so advanced because you had your lighthouses and all of that stuff. But then I ended up jumping in. I ended up getting a Rift when it was like the summer of Rift, that $399 deal. I was like, okay, F it. I'm going to do this because I'd been playing games in Revive, trying to play the Mage's Tale in Revive, struggling to like throw fireballs and things with my Vive wands. Just some games just didn't work good. And, but then when I got the Rift and it got the controllers and it's like, wow, those things just melt right in your hands. Do you feel like the controllers are a major improvement over there, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the best use for them is anything, obviously, that you have hand representation in game. The only things I really preferred the Vive wands for was, sword combat, that kind of thing, because the wands feel like you're holding swords, like playing a golf game or whatever. I preferred the wands, but for majority of games I've played, and any game that it's just your hands, climby, any of those games, I play anything you're pulling a bow and arrow, like it just feels so much more natural with the touch controllers. And I don't know. It's just for me a big thing. Like I got pretty good with the touchpad with smooth locomotion. Most VR games you don't have to get like super, not super precise with your movements and stuff. So it wasn't ever like a huge deal. Or a lot of games back then were just teleport games anyway. So that just pressing the button down was no big deal with the big wands. But having the touchpad or the joystick for converted games, because it just is basically it's a gamepad. It's so much, it just translates right to it, so it's so much more intuitive.
Have you ever tried playing I know, here's a good topic for you, because I remember way back in the days. See, the thing is, guys, I got to explain this. So me and AerowynX, I'm pretty sure I kind of met you on the Vive subreddit. Like you would comment on something and then I might reply to your comment or whatever. And we just kind of became friendly on there. And then we were Steam friends. And what would happen is there'd be some big announcement about a big game or some new headset or a price drop or something. And you would hit me up on Steam and we would chat back and forth for 3 hours or something, but then we wouldn't talk to each other for 5 months, and then some other new hardware would get announced or video cards or some big thing would happen and we would chat for a little bit. So that's kind of explains our relationship on social media, on Steam and all that, and the Vive subreddit. But basically what I was going to say is, so back in the days, I remember I used to talk to you about third-person VR games, and you would be like, nah, man, I don't really want these third-person games. I want, and I didn't mention you specifically, but I would talk about, some people hate these third-person games. Some people want it to be your boots are on the ground, your swords in one hand, your shields in the other. You're completely surrounded by a world. That is VR. But I would argue, dude, play Lucky's Tale, play Bound on PlayStation VR, even though you had it for 1 week. Play, some of these things. Now, we talked about that back in the days, but that was before, I think it was before Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice had come out, and it was before Moss and stuff. Have you, and Pixel Rip 1989 and some other stuff like that, did you ever end up playing any of those games? Did you ever change your opinion at all about third person, or do you still kind of stick to your guns and VR is about being fully immersed in the world? What do you think?
To me, it depends on the game. A game that obviously was made for first person, I couldn't see playing third person. Like Skyrim, obviously, for another example, is a third person or a first person game. I couldn't see myself playing that game third person. I wouldn't really see a point. But I did play Hellblade, and I mean, it's a good game. I think the biggest aspect with that one, though, is the fact that you have voices in your head, and that works out really well in a VR aspect because you're all enclosed in there. And then I played it's the one. It's another Oculus game. It's the Frozen World one. It gets really weird. It's like a
Edge of Darkness or Edge of what is it called?
Edge of Nowhere, maybe.
Edge of Nowhere. Yeah. That's it.
So I played that, and that one was pretty cool. What I liked about Senua's Sacrifice and that one is the camera is very low. So it's like right on the character's shoulder.
Yeah.
So you get more of an immersive feel in that compared to like I didn't really care for the fixed camera on Chronos because it's just fixed on part of the wall and you're not really over the character's shoulder. So to me, I mean, it depends. Like some strategy games, yeah, it's great for third person. You're controlling your little guys, or the God type games like Townsmen and stuff, where you're controlling this little world because it works a lot better. But I guess technically your character is first person, so that works out. But yeah, for me, I don't mind third person completely. I just if I'm gonna play one, I much prefer, like you mentioned, Lucky's Tale. I'm not huge on that one, but I much prefer like the low view camera like Senua does, where you're like right on the character's shoulder.
Did you ever try the cinematic mode that they had in that game where it almost looks like a weird Pixar cartoon or something, like the mud and stuff looks so weird?
Yep, yeah.
That was pretty cool. What one other thing I forgot to mention though, in terms of like you getting an Oculus and like having touch controllers, and when you got your Oculus, is you probably played a lot of stuff through Revive prior to that. Trying some of these different games here and there in Revive. When you finally actually had like the real Oculus with the real touch controllers and all that, did you go back and try any of those games, like maybe a Robo Recall or something? Did you notice like a pretty big difference in like your enjoyment level of those games from using Revive to having like the real deal?
Yeah, any of the games that really lean on those finger motion sensors, definitely like Robo Recall, not too much because that one you just kind of can teleport around and you're shooting stuff. But Lone Echo for sure, because it's all hand stuff, so it felt very unnatural to play Lone Echo with the Vive wand. Um, and that's kind of that was the main one I can think of. I played Wilson's Heart with both, and that one doesn't really matter because you're just kind of teleporting around and you touch a few things here and there. There's not really a huge there's not really a huge focus on the actual finger tracking on that game at least. But yeah, any game, even Arctica, that one was pretty good on both, but the performance was definitely a lot better playing it without Revive, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the other factor as well, is you do get that performance boost. Yeah, see, so I'm really excited about this upcoming Valve headset, right? The Valve Index, but I don't know that I could completely just get rid of my, like, not have an Oculus Rift, because it's just I feel like I remember Revive. I remember it too well, and I don't want to disparage like Cross VR and all the incredible work he did, and like it's awesome that we have Revive, and some games it is pretty much the same thing. You don't get that much of a difference, and it works out fine. But other games, I felt like I was let out of jail. When I finally got my touch controllers, and so I feel like I'm in a situation now. Ideally, I would like to be able to sell my Rift, get some money for it, and I don't need to own 5 headsets necessarily, but I feel like I got to keep a Rift. Do you feel like at this point now, like, are you going to hold on to a Rift just to have one for those occasional times when you need to do that, or what do you think?
I'm probably gonna keep it just initially, but I really don't want to like. I have to have 4 freaking USB slots, and I keep having USB bandwidth issues. And then the other thing is, I've watched videos of, I think it was the Revive dev. It was a couple other guys, but they were playing Oculus exclusives with the knuckle controllers, and it can do all the same, motions, and you got thumbsticks. So to me, that kind of takes the advantage away from, the big advantage that Oculus is going to have is performance. I haven't tried Revive in a while, so I don't know if it's gotten any better on that end. But for me, if the knuckles can, emulate the touch, just as well and can do all the same stuff. I don't see it as being much of a disadvantage. And to me, to have to keep all three of these sensors hooked up to my PC plus a headset, there's 4 USB slots, and I just I don't see me doing that. So it would have to be like really a freaking nightmare for for me to keep the Rift after the Index comes out.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I didn't think, like, that's a great point about the Index controllers. It's different. And so, yeah, if Cross VR, if they can do a great job of of making that translation work for the Valve Index controllers, that could be a huge deal. Like, that really could be a game changer. Okay, you know what? I'm going to, before we get into the Valve Index real quick, because you were kind of a Vive guy for a while, let me just throw a little Vive trailer on the screen here, is what the hell is HTC Vive doing? Like one of the questions I've had with Vive for a long time is like, they just fell into this situation where they became a known commodity. Like, it's kind of like Pepsi and Coke, right? Oculus might be Coke and Vive is Pepsi, but like, what a beautiful thing that they fell into, where people know about the HTC Vive, like YouTubers, PewDiePie and stuff, you know, they've played HTC Vives. And so there's random people that know about the HTC Vive, and they became a household name. They're known for VR, and I feel like they had plenty of opportunities to possibly come out with a really nice headset at the right time when people were looking for upgrades. People were really desperate to upgrade, and it seems like they just, like, what are they doing? Like, what do you think they're doing?
Well, so to me, it seems like HTC. I mean, I haven't. When's the last time HTC phones come out? I haven't even heard of HTC phone. I remember back years ago they were all over the place, but they've obviously shifted their company. And to me, it seems like they looked at the whole picture and they're like, you know, how much can we get from this gaming community? How much can we get from going like the enterprise route? And they're like, well, you know, big business, this can do big in big business. We can, you know, get all these medical companies, we can get the military, NASA, everybody on board. We'll start moving into China, doing the VR arcades, because obviously our tracking's much better for that. We have a freaking VR ride at our Six Flags here that I went to a couple weeks ago, that uses all Vives, all set up Vives and all that. So I think for them, they're looking more, they've moved off and we're like, you know, we need to make money off of this, and where we're going to make the money is enterprise. And I kind of saw that when the Pro came out and the pricing came out, and they didn't offer any kind of trade-in, or that any kind of, there was a lot of rumors right before that they were going to have some kind of like upgrade trade-in for original backers, and we got nothing. And I was like, that was right around the time that I was thinking about getting the Oculus, and that kind of just drove it home, where I was like, you know, I don't think Vive's going to be, or at least HTC is going to be sticking around for the, you know, us gamers very long. So I kind of jumped ship on that reason too.
Do you think part of it is they knew what was coming? Like, if anybody, like, they probably knew that their days were numbered, and maybe they had to like shift.
Yeah, I mean, I think when they first started, like you said, they probably thought VR was going to explode a lot more than it did right out the gate. And they probably thought they were going to sell millions of units that first year. And when they didn't, they're like, oh crap, we gotta we gotta figure out another strategy to you know, to build our business. And I think they just went towards the you know, I mean, there's plenty of avenues for them to, you know, hang around in all these other places than gaming. And that's, if VR is what's, you know, going to be driving that company going forward, that's probably where they want to position themselves.
Okay, so speaking of all these new headsets that seem to be on the horizon, right? I'm running a little Vive Cosmos trailer right now, which we still haven't. It's kind of crazy. This was announced back at the January CES, right?
Yeah.
The Vive Cosmos. We
Yep.
still don't know diddly squat about it. So,
Yeah,
which is
that was
kind
one
of
of the
crazy.
most that was one of the most like vague trailers I've ever seen that explained nothing and had weird images. Like, what the hell was that cell phone sitting in the back of the like? It was such a weird.
The
Yeah, they gave
controllers
nothing.
look very much like the new Oculus. Like at least they finally made new controllers. We got to give them that though, you
Yeah, it
know.
does look like the Quest controllers.
But they do have they have two trigger buttons, so they kind of one upped. They have like the DualShock 4 type of thing going on with the dual
Yep.
shoulder buttons, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, so do you have a regular OG Vive? Like, is that you got an OG Vive and a Rift?
I sold the OG Vive last summer.
Okay. What do you have now?
Just the Rift
Oh,
right now.
just the
Well,
Rift. Okay.
I have a Rift, I have a Go, and I have a Gear VR.
Oh, okay. So what do you think about like? So I mean, I'm assuming you're probably in the similar situation as me, where you've been wanting a new headset, and you've been interested in getting a new headset, but there hasn't been one for you to buy. Because I'll tell you what happened to me is like I had a Vive and I had a Rift. I had them both here simultaneously, and I really thought that an announcement was incredibly imminent for this LG
Oh
Steam
yeah.
VR, and I thought
Yep.
for sure, I thought it was I think it was going to be at the January 2018 CES, and I was like, okay,
Yep.
I don't need a Vive right now because I'm going to get another Steam VR headset as soon as this LG gets announced, and so I sold off my Vive and let it all go bye bye, and thinking I'm gonna get a brand new headset, it didn't happen, and here we are. It's like over a year later, still don't have a brand new headset. Now the good news is there's a lot of headsets on the horizon. So you've got the Oculus Rift S, which I'm
Yep.
sure you heard all the announcements and all the stuff about that. Doesn't seem
Yep.
to be very much of an upgrade there. What's your IPD, by the way? Because it might be pretty decent for you.
Yeah, I'm at 61.
Oh, okay. Which is better than where I'm at. 61 is better because 64 and a half I think is like the perfect IPD that you'd want to have,
Hmm.
and so you're not that far off of that, so that's good. So like when you use the Oculus Go, do you ever get blurriness or headaches or eye strain or any of that stuff?
Not really, but the thing is, I don't really use it that much. I mean, it's really my son's. I got it for Christmas for him, and I've used it a couple times, but I don't like. I can't play games with that controller. It's very weird. Like the controller just kind of floats next to you. It doesn't. It's not tracked, so it it just feels very weird to play any game with it. And I've tried to watch a couple movies with it, but I don't know. I wouldn't say it's that comfortable that I want to sit there and watch a movie with it.
What do you
Um,
think about like the LCD and like the God rays, the optics and all that? Because like I wasn't that blown away by the Go, but other people I know like were really blown away by the reduction in God rays and like things being clearer and crisper with the like the RGB stripe and the LCD.
Yeah, I wouldn't say to me it's like night and day difference. I've gotten in the argument couple times with people. So I've owned the Odyssey and the Odyssey Plus. I bought both of them when they first came out. The Odyssey when that first came out, and then again with the Odyssey Plus. I couldn't even get a week with either of those. Mostly because I just found them so incredibly uncomfortable that I couldn't wear it for more than like 20 minutes. But but on that one too, like when I put it on, like yeah, it looks a little better than the Rift, but like I've talked to people and they're like, oh my God, it's like night and day difference between, um, between either the Vive or the Rift and the Odyssey, and I'm like, I don't. I mean, I guess it depends what game you're playing, because some of them, some games you see like the SDE a lot more than other games. Some games the resolution matters more than other games, so it kind of depends what you're playing. But to me, that jump isn't like so big that it's like feels like it's a new generation of headset or anything. And that's the thing with the Rift S. I think it's just going to be mild improvement over what we have now, but I don't see it being a big jump from like the Pro or the Odyssey or anything that's already out.
Yeah, so like Pimax and stuff, were you ever tempted by that?
So I've followed it. I almost backed it. I was very close. I had it, had my finger there, but I was like, I don't know. It's a new company and they have no track record. I just couldn't see myself putting that much money into it. We don't know the, quality control on these. Are they going to have like, we're going to have like reports of thousands of headsets getting returned in the next year because they all broke at once.
Well, you think about all like the people that have received these headsets, almost every one of them have had some problem, at
And
least
that's what
one
I
or
kind
two
of figured.
problems.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I was scared of them as well, and I think now that we have like as soon as I heard the Valve Index announcement, I thought Pimax, man, you guys had a tiny little window of opportunity, and that window just got slammed the f shut. But Steve Bishop on VR Roundtable, one of
Yeah.
the other hosts over there, he doesn't think he thinks Pimax is still okay. He thinks HTC gets killed by the Valve Index. I think Pimax gets killed too because this is. See, the Valve Index is probably going to be a pretty high-end headset in certain areas, and that's where the Pimax was. So, I mean, the only advantage the Pimax would have now is that extra FOV, but like a lot of people that get them, like they don't
Yeah.
even really notice that extra FOV unless it's taken away, and then they notice it being taken away, but they don't notice it when they're in it. Have you ever tried one or at like it?
Nah,
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to try one, but talking to people too, like most people have to play at the 150, which I think is like the normal or whatever. And like most people I've, interacted with that had one, they say most games have major issues with either performance or just distortion and stuff when you're playing at the highest field of view, the max one. And I think that was kind of the mistake they made when they, started the whole thing. They should have just done a 150 headset and improved every other aspect of it. And they could have gotten like the head strap out right away and maybe their controllers earlier than trying to do these huge panels. I think it would have been a lot more beneficial because we still didn't have anything even close to 150. And a lot of people would have just bought it for that and that plus higher resolution. I think that would have been a smarter move for them than going for that 200 field of view or whatever.
Okay, Kevin in our chat right now is saying the HP Reverb and Index definitely have all the attention at the moment. And I just threw the HP Reverb trailer on the screen. And so this is one that we found out about prior to the Valve Index. And there is some excitement about this because the 2160 by 2160 per eye. Like we've heard about this a number of times. We heard that there were going to be some more higher resolution headsets that were going to start to hit the scenes. You tried the Samsung and you're saying that you didn't really notice a major resolution bump. Do you think 2160 by 2160 is this new level? Like, is this something you're kind of excited for?
Yeah, I think going up to that's kind of the more than just the mid up. Like that's going to be like it's over double what we're at right now. And it would be great. I mean, I'd love to get one of those if they would have, added an extra camera or two and changed the controllers. But I don't know. I just don't see paying $600 for and have that Gen 1. Those I really don't like the Windows MR controllers at all. And then and the tracking. I mean, the tracking is not terrible, but it's not great. And with the Index coming out a month later, I couldn't see myself spending $600. I could see, for people that are really big on racing games and stuff, because it's supposed to be super light. I guess it's only a pound. All the hands-on impressions said it was super comfortable and all that. So I think people that have those full racing setups and stuff, that'd be a perfect headset for them. But for the room scale stuff and all that, I think the Valve headset's going to be the way to go.
In regards to the what was I going to say? Damn it, I just lost it. Let me think. Yeah, Windows mixed reality. Oh, okay, I know what I was going to say. Okay, so let's say on May 1st, though, on May 1st, we find out that the Valve, like, what do you think the resolution of the Valve Index is going to be? If somebody put a gun to your head and said, you've got to predict the Valve Index resolution right here and right now, what is it?
I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's similar to the Pro. It'd be nice, the Pro, the Odyssey. It'd be nice if it was more. But I mean, the other thing, people get so stuck on the numbers for resolution. There's so much other that goes into that. I mean, you take, you've got a PSVR, look at that, you see less screen door effect and the resolution's lower, it's got lower specs. They're doing, they haven't really gone into detail, but whatever those dual lenses are going to do that could, improve the optics. You got, who knows what they've been working on for the last, how many years on different ways to improve what we see in VR compared to just panel resolution. I mean, that's not the end all for what you're looking at. So I, I don't know. I see the discussions all the time, and people are freaking out that it's going to be, it's this resolution or that resolution. And I mean, going from the going from the Vive to the Rift actually, the specs, you look on paper, the specs are the same, but the Rift actually has a better picture than the Vive. Like a lot of the games I play, you can notice that I notice the SDE a lot more on the OG Vive than I do on the Rift. And same with, sweet spot and stuff. I feel just how I can position on my head. I mean, that takes a lot into account. I mean, that was one thing with the Odyssey. I couldn't even find a comfortable position to hold it. And then if you tighten that stupid band on the back, it pulls away from the bottom of your face. So it's just kind of floating in front of your face. I mean, it's just a terrible design.
Did you try any of like the little mods that are out there in terms of like little pieces of Velcro and duct tape and stuff that people have come up with?
I did on the Plus because I was like, all right, I fought with it on the original one. I was like, all right, I'm going to try to figure out a way to make this comfortable just so I could use it. And I mean, it's better, but it's just a weird, because I don't know if maybe on the Rift S, that top strap that they added, maybe that helps because it doesn't have that on the Odyssey. But you tried the Rift S. Does it have a hinge on the connection point from the Halo to where it bends down on your face?
I wasn't paying attention to that part of it.
Because
Yeah.
when you have the Odyssey, it's got the halo there. It sits on your forehead. Now, unless your head is a certain shape where it just kind of molds into it, you got to tighten that back part. Well, the problem is when you're tightening the back part, it's putting the pressure on your forehead, which then pulls the bottom of the headset outward.
Yeah.
So it's not touching your face anymore. And that's the only way to tighten it. And with no hinge on the front, you got this rigid piece of plastic that's just pushing the headset farther away from your face. So you need a hinge there or something, to bring it back towards your face. And like you said, some people are using like Velcro, and I tried that. It makes it so it'll hold onto your face, but I just still didn't find it like comfortable. And then, it was compounded by I hated the controllers, and then dealing with the Windows MR tracking, I was just like, it's not worth it to me.
One question though regarding the resolution, like on the Vive Index, like let's say it's 1400 by 1600 or whatever, basically, Vive Pro Samsung Odyssey resolution. Like you're saying that you don't think that's that big of a deal because there's so many other factors. But what about if it does have this 135-degree field of view? Like, aren't you spreading that resolution kind of thin over that wider?
Yeah, so I would think just for that factor that they would go with a higher resolution for the field of view bump. And the fact that it's coming out now, I mean, you got to consider they probably want this product around for a couple of years. And there's got to be other headsets aside from HP that are going to be coming out with these higher resolution headsets too. So, I mean, Valve's not that stupid. They got to be like, we're going to market this thing for the next 2-3 years, whatever it's going to be. And to bring out a headset with the same resolution as a Pro that's been out for what, over a year and a half or whatever it's been out for now, doesn't seem like it's something that they would do.
Okay, but we did get that little page that leaked for like one day, and apparently that page was a legitimate page because I believe Doug Lombardi said, he said it was accurate but not comprehensive, that it didn't have all the
Yeah.
information, but it was accurate. But on that page, I believe it said that the minimum spec was a 970, and I think
Yep.
a recommended was a 1070. And but if that's the truth, how could they go to 2160 by 2160 with this 135-degree field of view and all this stuff? Like how is a freaking 970 going to be able to, like, does this have eye tracking and foveated rendering as well? And then if it does, like, that would be cool. That
Yeah.
really would be cool. But like, do you think Valve, like, what would be your guesstimate? Again, somebody puts a gun to your head. What is the price of this thing going to be on May 1st? What are we going to find out?
My guess would be $799, same price as the original. But then it just depends what kind of tech else is in it. Like you said, maybe it's got, some other, like, who knows what the hell's in that front thing. It could have something cool. Like, we have no idea. They didn't really give us much but that stupid picture, so we're kind of all in the dark on a lot of this. For the specs, though, it could be, I mean, maybe they're going the Oculus route and they're going to say, maybe they got a better version of motion smoothing, or they're going to say motion smoothing is good enough for this headset and you can rely on it. And then that cuts your specs in basically half. Like, I mean, for Oculus, they lowered it down to I don't even know what it is right now, but they're saying that, ASW is good enough for a playable experience and just rely on, reprojection. So, and Sony does the same thing. They rely on their reprojection. So maybe Valve's got something else they're going to add to Steam VR, a better version to allow lower end headsets to run this at that 130 and the higher resolution. But yeah, for me, I'd love to have eye tracking and foveated rendering and be able to run that. But to me, I think that's going to be too expensive to add to something that they want to get out there. And I don't know, just that we haven't heard anything about it having that, or there hasn't been any information. I'm not keeping my hopes up on that.
Yeah, it's so hard to imagine what's really going to happen on May 1st because, I mean, you think about Valve and you think, what is their modus operandi, what's their MO on this? Like, what are they trying to do? Because a lot of people say that what they're trying to do is they don't want to allow the Oculus store to become like a major thing. Like if VR were to ever really, really, really take off, they don't want it to be they don't want their store, Steam, to have diminished importance in a possible VR future. And so they've got to do this. They've got to protect the throne. But the thing is, if you believe that, then wouldn't you believe that they would kind of be going after that same market, which would be more mass market, where more people can afford it? And if I personally believe it's going to be $899, that's my guess. And I think like you come out at $899, and there's a lot of people that think, God damn it, that's a Panasonic 3DO. This is like a super expensive thing that I can only dream about. Like there's people that still believe like $399 is too damn expensive,
I mean, if they got their, magic ace up their sleeve and release Half-Life VR, I think people will be will be buying it no matter what. So
there's a good topic we can go to. That's a great topic because I actually, not Half-Life VR, but Half-Life 2. No, I want to talk about Half-Life 2. Remember that? Let me see if I can find my trailer for that. So I don't know how many years ago this was that I was talking to you in a little Steam chat, Steam chat on about Half-Life 2 VR, the VR mod, and the Half-Life 2 VR mod team and stuff. And I remember like this is years ago, and you were like, "Oh, dude, this is going to be out any month now. It's got to be almost done, right?" And I was like, I don't know, man. And do you remember I told you a long time ago? I was like, for some reason, I have a worry in the back of my mind that this game is never going to see the light of day, because I felt like maybe Valve has some kind of plans, but they
Yeah.
don't want to announce those plans. They don't want to have to announce those plans before they want to announce those plans. And that this game would kind of violate those plans that they have, or who knows? Valve seems like they're working with a lot of other developers now. I mean, look at Boneworks. Look at how incredible
Hmm.
that thing looks. So maybe could they have even talked to these people that are doing this Half-Life VR mod? Could Valve have come to them? Somebody from Valve comes to them and says, "Hey, what do you think about a collabo? Like we would." You help us, or I mean, I don't know how that would work, but is there any chance we're going to be playing this thing on the Valve Index? What do you think is ever going to happen with this Half-Life 2 VR mod?
Yeah, it's been a funny story because I used to follow their subreddit for a long time, and they kept putting out little teases. They put out the pictures, and they put out a little trailer, and the main developers on there, he kept saying on there, yeah, it's going smooth. We're getting close and all that, and then months would go by, and people keep asking, and months would go by, and I remember one post he had. He's like, "Yeah, we're getting ready to put up our green light page, and we're going forward." And then you get, it's just constant flood of comments of, "Yeah, this thing's never coming out." And then but it was funny because he'd always reply. I forgot the guy's name, but he'd always reply and say, "No, we're definitely still working on it." But I think if Valve, if they had a plan to, maybe port all their old games, because that seems like a reasonable thing to do, it's probably wouldn't be too hard for them to do so. And then like maybe do a bundle with, a lot of their old games plus one of their new games. That would be a huge incentive for people to, pick up one of these new headsets. They could put out, I would think Portal VR would probably be the easiest one to translate to VR. Bring out like a Portal VR and then a bundle with like remastered Half-Life 1, 2, episode 1 and 2 in VR type thing.
Yeah, god damn it. I'm watching this trailer and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking back to the time when we were talking about this, and I was thinking there's going to be some random day where I'm going to log on to like the Vive subreddit, and it's like, holy shit, this game is out. Everybody's going to be talking about it, and it's going to be like, oh shit, I got to run to my computer. I got to download this thing. I got to check this out, because I've never completely finished Half-Life 2.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I never finished it. I don't know how far. I got like halfway through it. I was like on some level where you're like riding on a boat somewhere, and I was stuck in some little area, and I never got past that point. And so when I hear about stuff like No Man's Sky and all these things that are finally coming to, they're being reborn on VR, it's super awesome for me, because like I never played No Man's Sky, and I've only played halfway through this. And so like if this was released tomorrow, this would be like Christmas for me, because I loved City 17. I mean, I remember the beginning of Half-Life, just the environment and everything, like the oppressive like Big Brother and all of that, like on the video
Yeah.
screen. Like that would be so cool in VR. Seeing these guys in VR with their little weird helmets that they're wearing, and the face huggers and all that crap. And then we see like Boneworks. Like I know you've seen the most recent
Yeah.
Boneworks trailer. I mean, that looks just insane. But let me ask you this question. So I don't know if you played Duck Season. I don't know if you played Hover Junkers, but that's stress level 0. So
Yep.
do we think that a developer that made those two games is all of a sudden going to turn into Naughty Dog or Rockstar North? How do they become this incredible developer like in a matter of a few months here? Like, because it looks insane.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they got a lot of help from somebody, because just the level of graphics alone look a whole nother level compared to Duck Season, for example. I mean, it was a fun game, but it wasn't the most graphically amazing game. Um, I don't know. I'm interested to see what that Boneworks turns out to be. There's don't really have much information on it aside from the trailer, but does look pretty, that's for sure.
What about, like, some people have actually had the theory that they're working on, like, this is freaking Half-Life 3 or something, that we're
Yeah,
actually looking at Half-Life 3. What do you think about that?
I
Like,
mean,
that seems like a,
visually it's got the feel to it, like visually, and I mean it. When you think about like a modern version of Half-Life, it kind of gets that feel. So I can see why people would make that connection there. I mean, who
either
knows?
Valve, they've got to be really cool with these guys. You know what I mean? They've got to have seen like this, and like, because there's all the head crap, like, just so much of it is very Half-Life ish.
Hmm.
And so I would have to imagine, like, either Valve is like, oh, we're totally cool with this, go ahead, do it, it's funny, it's great, we're, or they're actually working with them in some way, and they're like encouraging. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me, but whatever the case may be, I'm looking forward to it. It does. I mean, the videos look incredible. Look, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to talk smack. So Alan Young in chat just said Anthony has just lost everyone's respect. I don't know if he means because I said, look, these guys made Duck Season and Hover Junkers. Now all of a sudden they're Naughty Dog or they're Rockstar North. What I'm trying to say here is, look, I look at the results of what a company's delivered, and it's like, you get a certain level of quality, and then all of a sudden it jumps dramatically high. It's kind of unusual. So I'm just trying to be cautiously optimistic here, because we get our hypes, we get hyped up on this stuff, and then when it finally comes out, it doesn't freaking deliver, and we kind of get disappointed by it. But like, of all the games that are coming out in the not too distant future, I know, you can just jump into Skyrim and continue playing that until the day you die practically, but I'm sure you're probably hyped on some of these games. What's your, like, you've seen Stormlands, No Man's Sky, you mentioned that a couple of
Hmm.
times. I kind of feel like there's three big ones right now: No Man's Sky, Stormland, and then Boneworks. Like, if you could have one of these games overnighted to you, completely finished, and you could play it tomorrow, the full thing, which one would you, and, well, I guess Boneworks, I'd almost have to say that you'd have a Valve Index to be able to play that.
Yeah, I mean, probably No Man's Sky, just because I didn't really get into it too much when it first came out, and I'm into the progression type games that you play for long periods of time. I like having a character you can develop and come back to and that kind of thing. And the fact that they're doing like a proper, well, what looks like a proper VR full implementation, I think that game's going to be just crazy in VR. I mean, it's when I first got it, I was like, this would be a great game in VR. So to be able to see it in full VR, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I've played a lot of Subnautica, and it's a fun game, but obviously they didn't do very much of anything to translate that to VR. They just basically adjusted the camera and the field of view so it looked okay, but there's no motion controls. They didn't really do much to the menus. It's like right in your face and it's hard to read, and it just wasn't implemented well, and they've pretty much ignored the VR community since that game came out. And so I have no hopes of Subnautica, but I mean, you look at No Man's Sky, it's got a lot of the same aspects of Subnautica, but a whole lot more to it. So that'd definitely be the one I'm most excited about.
You know what? You know what's interesting is, like, see, I've always been more of a single player guy and liking to explore worlds and stuff like that. And you're kind of the same way, right? Or do you get into
Hmm.
games like Contractors and, like, all these, like, From Other Suns, or like War Dust and all that stuff? Or do you like more of kind of the single player type stuff?
Um, I don't like military shooters at all. That's like my least favorite genre of game. But the only online games I ever played was I play MMOs, so I'm an RPG fan. I've been playing RPGs since before we had internet. But
Oh, damn
so I mean that's my kind of game. So I'm definitely yeah, big world single player. Like Witcher 3 is my favorite game of all time. It's just phenomenal game. Um, So if I'm gonna play an online game, I like the, fantasy worlds. I'll do sci-fi. Like I'm kind of interested in Star Citizen if that ever actually comes out. Um, but as far as VR, I don't know. Like there's some genres like that I didn't like before that I, might try in VR, but I wouldn't say VR alone really pulls me into that many new genres overall. Like I'll try different stuff. Like I've tried a bunch of RTS games because I'm not really an RTS fan, but some of the RTS games are pretty cool in VR. Be able to look over your, battlefield and control from there. But I don't know. I've tried a couple military shooters. I've tried, Onward and all the Bullets and
Pavlov,
More
yeah.
and Pavlov and all those, and it's just all the same stuff to me. I played Counter Strike growing up and
Did
probably
you
too
try
much.
Space
And
Junkies at all? Space Junkies?
um, trying to think if I played the beta on that one. What was the other one that came? No, I didn't do Space Junkies. I did From Other Sun. I played
Oh,
that one
okay.
a little bit.
So on the screen right now, I have Orbis VR, but this is actually like the
Hmm.
old trailer, and so like Orbis VR Reborn is coming. What is it, later this month, I think. So you mentioned that you're kind of into MMOs and stuff. Have you ever tried this at all?
I didn't try the first one. It seemed a little too indie, simplistic, new. I don't know. It was just a little too basic for me. Um, I mean, I don't like need like super, nice graphics to enjoy a game, but I did see the Reborn. Maybe I'll check that one out. The thing is with the MMOs though is they're one of the hardest games to make because you have to do so much content to keep people to play for a long period of time. As the kind of game you gotta think of how you're gonna have people play for hours a day for months on end. I mean, those are the kind of games MMOs are. And I just don't see any small developer being able to produce that kind of game anytime soon. And that was my other issue with Orbis is I'd probably play it for like 2 weeks and then it'd be like, well, what else am I gonna do?
Did you ever hear about like those games that were in development that kind of like died out, like Meta World VR, and then you got like Elysium VR. I believe Elysium VR is still alive. Meta World VR, I'm not sure. And then you have stuff like Nostos, NetEase Games, like
Hmm.
that British company Improbable. They have something called Spatial OS, which is like designed. It's kind of like this next level design specifically for like MMOs to make MMOs a lot better. Were you excited for any of those things? Were you disappointed that Meta World just kind of fell off a cliff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too surprised some of these are gonna just disappear. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, I was waiting for EverQuest Next for how many years, and then they had trailers, and then they had EverQuest Landmark, and then the whole thing just disappeared. They shut everything down, and the game never came out. So, I mean, it's not surprising that, especially in a new emerging technology, that a lot of these are not going to be able to fund themselves to get through, the development process. The one I have seen videos that looks cool is that Nostos one. I like that kind of art style, especially, and the fact that it's going to be both, you play on PC and in VR. That definitely dramatically increases the amount of people, because that's another thing with MMOs and VR is there's not very many of us still, and especially for a low small indie game to try to get people constantly. I mean, it's good if you got a couple friends that you can just continuously play with, but I mean, you're used to playing MMOs that have thousands of people playing every day, and one of those things that for VR, I think it's going to be most beneficial to have that dual, be able to play on PC with friends, but you can still be in the headset.
Okay, here's an oddball question for you. Um, Google Stadia. Google Stadia. We heard about this thing, and one of the things they were talking about with Google Stadia is like thousands of people playing at the same. Like the way that they're doing it is like a different kind of a thing where it could allow potentially for like thousands and thousands of people to play or whatever. But obviously for us, for VR, it seems like it's kind of a non-starter, because how are you going to stream something to 2 eyeballs at 90 frames a second, maybe 5G or something eventually. But any thoughts on like this weird future of streaming and how that relates to VR?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a long time for us. I think, as much as I would love to have Ready Player One happen in the near future, realistically, we're quite a ways from anything even close to that. Hopefully, it'll be something I can retire into and live in, but even that, I don't know. I don't even know if we'll get there by then. I mean, it's just, we don't have the technology yet. We're just barely getting, the 5G network's going to start mobile soon, but we need something that can deliver that much bandwidth to devices that can display, the level of graphics. And I don't know. It's going to be a long road, I think, and hopefully one that we get to in our lifetime.
Yeah. So, thinking about like the online streaming and all of that, that makes me think of Microsoft, because I think they're going to go down that road at like this upcoming E3. Like, I'm sure they were kind of like not disappointed, but Google's basically doing kind of what they wanted to do, and they jumped out there early and all of that. But it leads me to this question of Xbox and VR. Like, are you surprised that Xbox never got VR, and it doesn't seem like it's going to get VR anytime soon? I mean, I've kind of always said that Microsoft basically dodged a bullet. Like their feet haven't been held in the fire over not having any VR. Like, they've been able to get away with it. Do you think that strategy might come back to haunt them long term, or what do you think is going on inside Microsoft in relation to VR? Or are they just AR because of HoloLens and stuff?
Yeah, I remember a couple of talks with I forgot the guy's name. He's like their lead market guy for Xbox, but
Phil Spencer, probably.
Yeah, I think it was Spencer. So he was talking about it. It might have been last E3, and his big thing is they kind of decided that they didn't feel that wired VR was right for consoles, and he didn't really want to explore it until you could do proper wireless VR safely on, in your living room and all that stuff. And because I'm sure they could just throw a Windows mixed reality headset, especially on the Xbox X, could play it just fine. But it seems like they're gonna be the wait and see type company, and I don't know.
It's a complicated thing though, because it's like, a lot of people always say, well, why can't you just use a Windows mixed reality headset? And like, you could just flip a switch, like you said, and the Xbox One X does probably have the power for that. But the flip side of the coin is like, if you're going to start doing VR, now Microsoft all of a sudden has to buy like 30 developers and have them all, you know what I mean? And they've got to be working for like months and months on VR games. Like, they have to have an entire launch and all of that. But at the same time, I mean, recently we heard about Nintendo. Like, who would have freaking thought that would ever, like, wasn't this like a bizarro world that you stepped into when you saw the news that freaking Zelda Breath of the Wild in VR on this Labo thing? Like, how weird is that?
Yeah, I mean, my son's like floored for it because he loves his Switch and all that, but like, I really don't understand how it's even going to work, because I mean, if you look how the thing's mounted, there's no, unless it comes with some kind of external strap, you just hold the thing up to your face. So who's going to play Zelda for, 10 hours with the thing just held to your face? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I feel like there must be some other, like, it seems irresponsible of Nintendo to even bring that out with that. Like I feel like there must be some other little accessory that maybe we'll find out.
It's like a helmet or something that you
where it
put
snaps
on
into.
Because it's like how they show in the previews. It's just somebody looking like a viewfinder, just looking through there. So, but even still, like, I don't know how Zelda would even run well in VR on a Switch to begin with. I mean, it's got to be running at like less than 30 frames a second with the dual display. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
well,
a really weird thing.
Best Buy apparently is having some demonstrations of it this Sunday. Like you can go to some Best Buys and demo. I mean, I don't know if they're going to have Zelda there or what, but they're going to have some demos. I'm kind of curious to see it, but I don't know. But the crazy thing is, though, could you imagine if Nintendo really did get into VR before freaking Xbox? Like Nintendo might beat Xbox to VR.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I have to imagine Xbox, those guys over at Microsoft, since they already own VR, they have to have some kind of plan going forward. Maybe it'll be for the next, the next Xbox or whatever. I can't imagine they're just going to sit on it forever. It just seems. I mean, PlayStation's doing pretty good. I mean, it's probably not as good as they wish, but it's doing pretty good. So I don't know. I don't see them sitting out for forever, at least.
Yeah. Okay, so running on the screen, I've been running this for a little while. This is the Oculus Quest trailer that kind of shows off all the different little Oculus Quest games. And of course, this is getting ready to come out. Now, most of the people that watch my show, I mean, some of them are interested in the Quest, but a lot of them are hardcore PC VR players. And they think, like, why would I buy an Oculus Quest? It's just going to collect dust. I'm playing my high-end PC VR. What do I need this for? Yeah, my kids could play it, but I'm not going to spend $400 just so they could play it. What are your thoughts on the Oculus Quest? Any interest or going to pass on it?
So I'm probably going to pass for myself, but I might get it for my son. Like, we were looking at getting VR for his room, but I don't really have space to run the sensors around. And then on top of that, his computer I don't think would handle all the freaking USB ports plugged into it. So we're looking at it. I mean, because I can kind of have him set it up like in just a section of his room, and it'll probably be all right. And then to me, I think it's an interesting device, especially to get VR out to people. Like, I could take that to my work and be like, "Hey, look at this. We can all," because I've done that with the Gear VR when that first came out, and I freaked some people out doing that. Was that one Fear game where I had the clown? You're sitting in bed. There's that one.
Face Your Fears, yeah.
Yeah, that one. So I showed up, a couple people that I had at work, and they freaked out. So I mean, it's effective, and that's just the Gear VR. So you can imagine being able to take that to a school or your place of work or something. It's a lot easier to get people to use it than having to lug these sensors around. And I know you guys were talking about that on one of your roundtable episodes about just being able to have that portable to take to places, and I think that's the biggest benefit in my eyes is just getting VR out there more.
Well, one thing that's kind of interesting, like and I had this story earlier, you probably didn't hear it, but before you got on, I was talking about how The Exorcist Legion VR has been announced that it's going to come to the Oculus Quest. And, that's not a big deal in and of itself. A ton of games are being announced for it. But one of the things that was mentioned in this Upload VR article was that they're going to have an option for this, like, bigger room scale mode. And that's kind of a cool thing about the Quest. I don't know if you saw this. It was on the Oculus Rift I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it. But on the Oculus Rift subreddit a number of days ago, there was this video where it was this game called Dead Secret Circle. And like the devs, it was like this video where it showed like a guy walking through his house, and he's like walking through multiple rooms of his house while he's playing Oculus Quest, and he was in Dead Secret Circle, this game Dead Secret Circle, which apparently that's, being ported over to the Oculus Quest. And it's like, the cool thing about the Quest for me is the opportunity where maybe we could have these giant room scale games that we've never had before. Because you go back to the early days of PC VR. Do you remember like Unseen Diplomacy and how some of these games like really featured that room scale, and that kind of died? And, the Oculus Quest is like this Snapdragon 835. The graphics aren't that great. But what if it does like these super giant room scale games? Like, wouldn't that be kind of a cool thing?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with room scale is most people obviously don't have the room, and that was the one thing with I think what developers saw with all those Steam surveys and stuff, and the average size of people's room was like the bare minimum for room scale. So like, well, I guess these games like Unseen aren't really where you need a 3 meter by 3 meter room, isn't really beneficial because we're already a freaking small market, and then you're gonna make that even smaller. So they were like, eh. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, it's one of those things where, warehouse scale VR is like what everyone would love to do. I mean, I wish I had a bigger space that I could jump around and do flips. And, if I was playing Sorrento and I could actually do a roll and slice things up, I mean, it'd definitely take it to a whole nother level.
Okay, I found this video. You're like 8 seconds delayed or whatever. I don't know if you have the YouTube thing running on a screen at all, but I found the video where it's this dev and he's obviously got an Oculus Quest on his head and he's got the Touch 2 controllers, and you see the hand presence in the dead secret circle, and he's like walking through a pretty big area of his house, and he gets like really close to a wall, and then he like bends down and looks at this guy smoking a cigarette. But don't you think, like, I mean, I don't know, for me, see, the thing is, yeah, people don't have huge rooms like this, but everybody knows somebody that does have a big huge room, or you like go to a school where maybe it's like I could bring my Quest to the freaking gymnasium one day, or the church's gymnasium or something, or I could bring it to the freaking mall, or like some people might even use these things like in a big parking lot at night if there's enough light where it could track. I mean, I don't know if that'll work, but because maybe you're very disappointed in the fact that the graphics are going to be kind of watered down and stuff, but would this idea of like these expansive room scale things, would that interest you in maybe getting a Quest?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't like in my house. There's so many little like turns and stuff. I don't know how well it would work. But it's something that'd be interesting. Like, I mean, for a lot of people, maybe you could just do it in your garage, I guess. You have a 2-car garage. You could just, take the cars out, and there you got like a, 5-meter space or something. Walk around. That's definitely, I mean, obviously wireless is such a huge advantage for anything. I think just having the wireless and Beat Saber is gonna freaking sell these like crazy anyway.
Did you ever play Beat Saber? Did you ever play it?
Yeah, I have it. I've played it. I didn't get super into it like a lot of people. I think I passed the the rhythm game craze back when I was a kid. It was all DDR and stuff, so I played that. Guitar Hero and all that. I don't know. The rhythm game's hard to keep my attention these days. I played way too much of them growing up, but I mean, yeah, Beat Saber is cool, and it's one of those games that's great to show new people because it's simple. Well, the easy mode's simple, and it's an easy concept for people to get, where you're just slashing. Everyone loves lightsabers. Everyone likes slashing boxes, I guess. But it looks cool too, and the default tracks are pretty good, and I think that just the Quest and Beat Saber, just taking that to like a school that's awesome. Like, that's
well, but here's one of the things I've been yapping about is like there's got to be an easy way to get the footage of your game onto someone's phone or somebody's tablet or something.
Yeah.
Because have you tried that with the Go? Because I've never gotten it to work good with the Go. And it's like if the Oculus Quest, like it's got to be a lot easier with the Quest. This is huge because I think like I'm going to get a Quest, and I go to birthday parties and I go to different gatherings and things, and I could take a Quest with me and I could possibly put a whole bunch of people into VR, and it could be a really big thing and a lot of people would be excited about it. But if they can't see what someone's seen, like if they can't see the Beat Saber on some kind of TV or some kind of screen, that's a problem in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing too, because you gotta also be able to wirelessly transmit that signal. So That's gonna be interesting because yeah, for especially like party aspects and stuff, if you want to have a party and everyone do some kind of Beat Saber competition, you're gonna want to watch the other person play. And I haven't really looked too much into it because if I ever got one, I probably wouldn't even use that. But for a lot of people, that'd probably be a huge issue if it doesn't have some way that they can project that image onto something.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, you know what, Justin? We've been going. Well, I've been going for a long time. I know you joined me a little bit late, but you've been going for a long time as well. And there's like a million. I mean, I could talk to you about a million different things. I mean, we didn't even like one of the things I kind of wanted to talk to you about was like the original Vive like launch games and stuff, and has VR gaming improved all that much, and like kind of reminiscent about some of like the games from the first year of VR, like lots of different things we could talk about. So I definitely could have you on again, if you have an opportunity again. We'll definitely have to do this again. I think it would be fun. But I definitely want to thank you for coming on. This was really cool. You know your stuff. You've been in VR for so many years, and you know this stuff well. So it was really nice having this conversation with you. I absolutely appreciate it.
Yeah, you too, man. Yeah, I know my schedule's kind of weird, so but I'll definitely hit you up and we'll find another date.
Well, you know what? How about this? How about after May 1st, we get this Valve Index information? I could get you back on here and kind of get the aftermath of what you think, is going on with the Valve Index. So that might be kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Okay, thanks so much, Justin. I'm gonna go ahead and end our call here. But again, thanks so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it, and I'll talk to you again. I'll talk to you on Steam chat and stuff. So we'll
man.
keep up on there.
All right, take care.
Okay, take it easy. All right. Well, that was Justin. I definitely appreciate it. Better late than never, right? So we got some good discussion, and this is a marathon episode of VR 365 Live. Let me see, where are we at on our... Yeah, it's 2 hours and 7 minutes. Damn, on our running time. Crazy long running time. But yeah, that is AerowynX. Oh my God, I didn't even talk to him about Sariento VR. Like before he got crazy into Skyrim, he was crazy into Sariento VR, and I should have asked him the proper pronunciation of it as well. And he was like a straight up master in Sariento VR, like doing incredible maneuvers and shit, like really good at that. And we didn't even talk about that. So we'll have to talk about that the next time I have him on here. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it, guys, for this particular episode of VR 365. I definitely appreciate everybody that's in chat, everybody that's been watching this stream, sticking with me for all this time. And then we finally did get AerowynX on here, and we were able to talk to him about a number of different things about... we covered the gamut. We covered a lot of different things. We talked about HP Reverb a little bit. Didn't really get into PlayStation VR too much. That's another thing I want to talk to him about, just because, he only had PlayStation VR for a short period of time. And I kind of wanted to ask him about any of these exclusives that are hitting PlayStation VR. Are you a little bit jealous about that? What does he think maybe about PlayStation VR 2 and things like that? I guess I'll have to get to him on the next episode that we have him on for that. So looking forward to that. Alrighty, guys. Well, you know what? I definitely need to get a little something to eat. I haven't really had dinner. I'm starving like Marvin, and need to definitely get some nourishment. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here. But the one thing I do want to tell everybody, if you are not already subscribed to our channel, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? We do not bite. At least we don't bite too badly. We're not Mike Tyson biting off Evander Holyfield's ears, so there's nothing too much to worry about. So go ahead and subscribe to the show. Go ahead and like this video. If there was anything about it that you liked, that would be awesome. If you do want to help support VR 365 or VR Game Rankings, or just me in general, right? Or like buying new headsets and stuff, you can definitely support us. We do have a Patreon. It's Patreon/VR365. And as far as PayPal, just go ahead and look in the show notes. We've got a link for like PayPal donations or for the Patreon support. That's awesome. I can guarantee you, man, I am excited for the arrival of all these new headsets that are coming. Oculus Quest, even Oculus Rift S. Yes, I am a little bit excited for it, mainly for like Pass-Through Plus and the comfort and the new controllers and stuff. Excited for that. I'm excited for freaking Valve Index for sure. I mean, who the hell isn't excited for that? And I'm excited for HP Reverb as well. But I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for all of it. But you know what? Some of your guys' donations, incredible. I mean, absolutely awesome. I absolutely appreciate that. It is huge, and it is getting me much closer to the possibility of getting those items. And I'm looking forward to that, and I want to report on that. But yeah, it's been a long night. It's been a long show. Some of you people that were in the UK that have stayed up to watch this, you guys are out of your mind. But I mean, that's awesome that you would do that. I totally appreciate it. No way in hell, man. No way in hell I'd be staying up super late. It would have to be like the only way I would stay up late would be like if it was like the Valve Index information was going to be released at 3 a.m. in the morning. Then maybe, and I would set my alarm clock to wake me up like 10 minutes before 3 a.m. I would wake up, I'd see the information, and I would go back to sleep. No way in hell I'd be up this late, but you know what? I definitely appreciate it. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this particular episode of VR365 Live. I will be back, of course, tomorrow on Thursday, and we'll be back to our normal time, which Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is supposed to be 2 p.m. Pacific. So Thursday and Friday, we will be back to 2 p.m. Pacific. Remember, tomorrow JetX is supposedly going to come out. So that'll be a brand new game for April 11th. Looking forward to that. But yeah, I'll see oh my God, Matthew Lake, 5 a.m. in the UK right now. Yeah, you guys are nuts. Unless you just woke up and you're getting ready to go to work. That's a totally different thing. But yeah, definitely crazy. But I appreciate it. It's awesome. Let's see. There was some other stuff I wanted to get into, but you know what? I'll save it for tomorrow's episode. So we'll talk about it tomorrow, and that'll work out. So I'll see everybody tomorrow at about 2 p.m. Pacific time. See you guys then. Have a wonderful, Wednesday, Thursday, wherever you happen to be, and I will see you guys tomorrow. So take it easy. Later.